This is Leicester's Demon FM.
Hello, my name is David Murphy. You're listening to 107.5 Demon FM. I'm with Matt Horn.
Hello, Dave.
And we're delighted to be joined on the line by poet and children's icon, we should say, Michael Rosen. Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Hello. We've got you on the line to speak about some of your work, and obviously we're through the young people we've got coming through colleges and all sorts of students in education. What sort of tips you could provide from your background in English and literature?
Tips for their writing or reading?
Well, a bit of both, really, but more normally writing.
Yeah, well, the thing about writing is that it appears, first of all, that it's kind of terribly easy. I mean, after all, once you've learned how to write, do the mechanics of it, you can literally pick up a piece of paper and a pen or sit at a computer and write. And that is true. You can. The only thing is if you want to write things that other people want to read, and that you can be proud of, and you'll start saying interesting things. Now, if you want to get into that territory, then all I can ever say is two things, and it really sounds so obvious that I'm almost ashamed to say them. That is, you have to keep reading and you have to keep writing. Okay, keep reading. You have to read almost manically. You know, there are interesting descriptions of Bob Dylan when he was about 19, 20, 21. He was a manic reader and collector of things that interested him. And when he wasn't reading, he was writing. And it was like he turned his brain and also his body in terms of singing and playing the guitar, but, into a kind of laboratory. And in a way, if you're serious about writing, you have to be an antisocial sod. You have to cut yourself off from other people and read and write and read and write and read and write. And then the kind of writer you will be will emerge out of that laboratory.
Are there any books that you would recommend for anyone?
Well, I think if you're interested in writing novels, then you must read novels. And if you're interested in writing novels, then you should read great novels, things that people have said are great. And that's of the long ago past as well as the present, because a lot of things were discovered by past writers. So read the great Russian novelists, read the great French novelists, and they've fantastic translations of these. So this is people like Balzac and Tolstoy and Turgenev and Flaubert and people like that, but also read the modern novelists, the people who broke through and changed the nature of the novel, people like Henry James and James Joyce. If you're interested in poetry, then in a way the same thing applies, that you read these kind of people who tried to kind of write great stuff in the past and succeeded, people like Wordsworth and Coleridge, but also the people who changed poetry a lot, people like T.S. Eliot, and the people who turned it into a much more diverse kind of form, so that read the Afro-Caribbeans, read the Africans, read people like James Berry, Derek Walcott, and also, think of poetry as a very personal voice. So find people who can, in a sense, talk to you personally. If you're a woman, let's say, of Caribbean background, well, then somebody like Jean Binta-Breeze might speak to you. If you're somebody, say, of Scots background, you might suddenly find Jackie Kay speaks to you. So find people who seem to speak to you according to the kind of person you are, but don't only restrict it to that. Widen it out. Find the greats of the past. Find the greats of now.
From your own illustrious background, would you say anything's changed, the methods of learning?
Yes, though these things tend to be cyclical. They tend to kind of come round again. So, I was at school in the 1950s. I had to study for an exam called the 11 Plus, which was a very vicious exam, because what it was it segregated people according to their ability to do some very, very narrow-based tests. So the whole of education was kind of geared up when you were 8, 9, 10, 11 to these tests, which were about segregating people in a very unfair way. And so, every morning you would be sitting there doing tests or the equivalents and so on. There was very little room within the school curriculum for what you might generally call a liberal education, going to museums, going out and looking at trees and studying things and investigating and discovering things. It was all instructional. Then there was a period in which, if you like, investigation and discovery came back for a while, and you could see that those in power rubbished it, and they said that this was failing children. Now, in actual fact, the evidence for this so-called failure is very, very thin. It's contradictory. It's by no means certain. Of course, some people were poorly trained, but then some people always are. But the very nature of the kinds of kids who were going into schools changed a lot. And lo and behold, we suddenly went back to that heavily instructional model. And so that came in with New Labour in 97, and they all came in, this testing and instructing, worksheet education came back. And this new lot who are in now, they seem intent on reproducing it. So I'm very gloomy in some respects. They push children away from investigating and discovering. And that seems to me those two things, investigating, discovery, along with play and cooperation, are the crucial aspects of learning if you want people to advance. So with my own children, I have much older children and younger children. With younger children, I really concentrate with them on finding ways in which they can investigate, discover, cooperate, and play. So, my daughter is doing the ancient Greeks, for example, in school. So, of course, what do? They produce all kinds of worksheety stuff on that. And I think, no, let's read some stories. Let's go to the British Museum. Let's go and find some statues and things and draw them and, just sort of enjoy the ancient Greeks. That's where you have to start with younger children. So, anyway, things are not, to my mind, in a very good state in education.
Well, you've got, obviously, reading and writing is one thing. Obviously, some of the things today, obviously, you're on television, you're on radio as well. Obviously, you're using the internet world, the sources of YouTube video sites. Do you think these help a lot?
They do and they don't. I mean, the point is, reading the internet, browsing the internet, using the internet is actually a very, very skilled and difficult job. Some people think all you've got to do is just switch on and press a button. But the moment you actually set a task, find out about somebody, find something, then you need to know how to browse using search engines, obviously famously Google and so on. And the moment you get that, you get like 5,000 results. Well, which one do you look at? Let's say you want to find out about the Tudors, so you bung in the Tudors into Google, and up come 26,000 hits. Well, which ones do you go to? What are you trying to find out? Well, you need to know how to home in on the stuff that you want. And sadly, at the moment, I don't see much of that going on either. It's just, I think in actual fact, to learn how to use the internet, ironically, one of the things you have to do is get away from the internet. You have to learn how to browse books. You have to learn how to browse different kinds of text so that you find out more about what you want to find out. People sometimes just sort of bung in questions and hope that they'll quickly come up with an answer. Well, you do and you don't. And you have to find, as I say, you have to learn how to use some of these rather strange icons and things on the screen and which one will take you to something that you want. And also you have to have patience. Some people think that you can ask it a question, all right, you might want to know when George Clooney was born and that will come up quick. But if you want to know about the Tudors, it may mean that you have to sit there for a couple of hours in order to do it. Well, schools don't seem to be helping kids with that. It does need a lot more help.
Falling in love with us? Carry on checking us out at demonfm.co.uk.